Well, ladies and gentlemen, look who's back in the building. The Andrew Bello has finally made his return back to the Awakened Soul. Mr. Woke, Andrew Bello, which is a nickname that you got here from the Awakened Soul. What's going on, man?
Not too much. Always happy to be here on the Awakened Soul. It's a second home away from home, essentially, in my podcasting world. So I'm growing as we'll I'm sure talk about at some point. I'll throw all my plugs in at the end of the show. But yeah, the Awakened Soul is sort of where my political podcasting career started, and you, sir, are the one who got me started in the podcasting world in general. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here, man.
Oh man, anytime I love talking to you in general. So we got politics, we got Marvel stuff. It's like the best of both worlds that we got to
Yes.
discuss. But before we get into that, I do want to talk. You have a new podcast. Finally, I've been waiting. Like when you sent me the text that you started this podcast, you should have saw the fucking shit-eating grin on my face because I've been waiting for this. The Cancel This podcast,
That's
political
right.
podcast from
Yeah.
the Andrew Bello. We've been waiting on this, man. What made you finally pull the trigger?
I was really sitting around. I've been watching a lot of the news, and I've been kind of this is something I've been in the works for a while now. And I, in the last couple of months, even started just typing up notes on like a weekly basis as things were coming across the news cycle. I'm like, okay, this would be a good topic for this, that, and the other thing. And I did that for like 2 or 3 weeks before I realized I should have just been recording shows doing this already. So one weekend or last weekend, I decided to just sit down and do it. With the DNC primary coming up, I needed to get this thing rolling because that's going to provide so much content. It's ridiculous. So just that alone, I wanted to kind of get it off the ground. Luckily, have great people in the podcasting biz, yourself and Billy Ray and Ben Hameen and Big Ray and all the guys that I've had the pleasure of working with over time, and they kind of got the word out as well. So we're off to a decent start, and hopefully we'll keep it going from there.
That's what's up. That's what's up. A great first episode. I don't know if you've dropped, as if we're recording now, dropped episode 2 or not. I've
Yeah,
been on
yeah,
the run all
episode. I
day.
guess it's yeah. Technically, the last week was kind of the pilot episode. So episode one is up right now on cancelthispodcast.podbean.com or on iTunes. You just search cancel this, and I'm the first thing that pops up. And I mean, as I was telling you, this is not your bipartisan, objective political podcast. Like, make no mistake about it. I've left those things in the rearview mirror at this point in time. If you want the opposite opinion, look no further than CNN or MSNBC. But if you're looking for the opposite of that, the Cancel This Political podcast is the podcast for you.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is too is that you don't have to be bipartisan. This is your opinion. So I mean, fuck it.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
give it your opinion. That's something that I've had to like. I like having both opinions displayed on the podcast. That's why I love having you on. That's why I love having Billy Ray Valentine on. People who are just not afraid to give their opinion and be honest with their opinion. That's what makes it worth listening to. Like if I'm just trying to give a opposing view that I really don't believe in, it's gonna come off as disingenuous. So there you go.
Exactly. And I'll try to be fair when it's going to be fair. It's not going to be, 100% pro Trump all the time. I do certainly have disagreements with them. And when I have them, I will point them out as well as any other political, people out there, any politicians, or for that matter, we're not keeping just the politics either. Culture, social media, things along those lines are definitely going to be targets and subjects as we move along.
Social media, man. That's you know what? Let's not even go down it because I at this point it's not even social media. Like it's so much censorship on all that shit now. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like I would. Do you agree? Like Twitter is almost the most unbiased place to be on social
It's
media.
it's
Almost.
close to it, definitely. It depends on your viewership. Actually, I talk a lot about this on this week's episode, so tune in if you want to hear that. But I was talking a lot about the Tim Pool conversation with Jack Dorsey and Vijaya Gotti on the Joe Rogan Experience last week, and they were pretty forthcoming. Jack, for the most part, was very understanding of Tim's concerns and in regards to the censorship and the biases that might be built into the program. But if you're out there, you can turn off their algorithms, or at least supposedly, by just clicking, getting the latest tweets as opposed to the hottest tweets or whatever the case may be. And then you actually get things that are coming into your timeline in real time as opposed to what they have configured should be something that you should see at the top of your
Yeah.
timeline. But as far as that's concerned, I feel like they are giving way where places like Facebook and maybe Instagram, I'm sort of out of the Instagram loop, but I know Facebook in particular, they're kind of going the opposite way with it, where they're making no bones about how we're shutting shit down and this is the way it is, and we're Facebook, do something about it.
All right. Yeah. I agree. Like it's that bitch of a place of Facebook. Let's not even do it. Let's not even do it. But so to get on the topics that we have for today, the first one, the state of emergency, Trump getting his wall built. As it stands right now, I believe the Senate is prepared to rebuke the state of emergency. Trump is of course going to veto it. So I don't. It's not really much to talk about there because I think that timeline of exactly how this goes was laid out by Trump when he declared the state of emergency. It's
It,
going exactly the way that he said it was going to go. So do you think that like all this talk, the states that have sued over it, that are trying to block it, is it all just delaying the inevitable? Basically, is what's happening.
I think so. I think at the end of the day, like you said, he's going to veto it. So all of this vote has just been for show for the most part. More importantly than that, and you know how I like to kind of twist things, and that Trump is some sort of mastermind here. I don't know that this is him necessarily as much as people that he's talking to, people in his circles, but they've already arranged it in such a way where by the time the Democrats get to suing over this money that's supposedly going to be designated as a result of the enactment of the National Emergency Act of 1976, in accordance with a couple other subordinances in there. He's going to be able to move money for military projects, which is going to ultimately just be a wall at the end of the day. But he's already got other monies in place that have already been signed off and passed by Congress in some of the budget bills over the last couple of years. He's going to start using all of that money first, and then by the time the money actually gets spent from the result of the state of emergency, and they start suing for that, like the hundreds of miles of wall will have already been built, and at that point it'll be just counterproductive to cut it off. If you built three-quarters of a wall, why wouldn't you just finish the damn thing for whatever it's going to cost at that point? The couple of $1 billion he's going to have to move around. So I think in that sort of way, the sequence in which the money has been high water, because by the time they get to the last $2 billion, it'll make no sense to not just finish the project.
And recently it came out that he's going to actually ask for an additional $8.6 billion as well. So that's going to be a whole nother fight coming.
Yes.
So it's just going to start. This whole process is just going to start over again. Whether you believe that the wall should or shouldn't be built, there does need to be something done about border security. I think that people are so against fighting the wall that that's kind of missed there, that something does need to be done. I personally, you know me, I'm a tech head, so the idea of more technology and monitoring does of course interest me. I haven't seen a plan in place that I can agree with, that I think is feasible. Just the idea of that, I would like to think that some form of technology can be done in a physical wall. But either way, something does need to be done. And I
Yeah.
think that the hate of Trump and everything is kind of losing sight of something needs to be done about border security.
Absolutely. And even with the technology, I mean, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't use those things as well. But the physical barrier seems to be the easiest solution. It's the most cost effective to put in all the infrastructure that you would need for a technological wall, whatever that means, whether it be everything from a force field to an electric, like a dog, like an electric fence kind of gimmick.
Yeah.
However they want to work it. I mean, there is still going to be infrastructure that you need to put in place to set up the sensors, to set up points for drones to be able to calculate where they are basically along the wall, and ultimately detect people coming across the border. So as rudimentary as it might be, the wall is probably the least or the most cost effective way to go about it. I mean, we're talking about, at this point, 5.7 billion, I think was the number a little while back that he said he needed. He got a little bit of in the budget this year, and the rest of it he's going to try to make up for with the state of emergency that he's got going right now. But I mean, just in relation to what it costs taxpayers, the wall would be paid for in months, not even weeks even. I mean, just in the state of California alone, these are statistics from fairus.org. In the state of California alone, a year, it's a $25 billion state deficit to the country, the cost of illegal immigrants through education, healthcare, law, justice and law enforcement, public assistance, and then general government services. At an average, the average legal Californian household, it costs them $2,350 in taxes every year to make up for what amounts to 11% of the population in California is considered illegal citizens and their children, dreamers, if you will. So, I mean, that's a considerable debt to the society. And if you can stop in order to keep the ship afloat, you got to start plugging the leaks before you can start redirecting, where the ship is going at the end of the day. So, to stop the influx that appears to be at an all-time high right now, or at least on track to be relatively high. And certainly compared to last year, we have 3 times more illegals being caught at the border at this time this year as this time last year. And Border Patrol agents say that they only really catch 1 in every 3 per people who come across the border. So you're looking at a tremendous increase of people that, if they're seeking asylum and they're coming in at ports of entry and they're filling out the paperwork and they're doing it the right way, they are more than welcome. But once you start your relationship with America by breaking a federal law, it's not a good indicator for where you're going to be as a citizen long term.
I don't think it could have been said any better. And I think that's the thing too, is that it's so much that we're painting people with these broad strokes of black and white. Either it's, oh, you hate all immigrants, you just don't want immigrants to come in. And it's like, for a lot of people, it is about coming in the right way and not sneaking in, which, okay, I can understand that. I am against like the idea of just not having immigrants come into at all to America, but that's not really what, for most people, the issue is. I think you
Right.
do have some of those radicals that do think that, whether they say it out loud or not. I don't want to act like that it's not a thing, but we need to stop painting in such broad strokes, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this country is founded on immigrants, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all immigrants to this continent, but at the end of the day, we are still a country. In order to have a country, there needs to be some sort of barrier put up, not necessarily a physical wall so much as a boundary. If you don't have a border, you don't necessarily have a country. We'd just be a one world, just kind of free Roman nomadic society where you could just come and go as you please. We all know that's not how it is, and we all know that's not how it should be at the end of the day. And so, putting up a wall, if that's what it takes to at least get people to come in through the proper ports of entry, that's, seems to unfortunately be where we're at.
All right. Well, enough said on that one. Do you have anything left to add on that? Back to I know we started talking about the border wall specifically a lot, but anything left on the state of emergency or where you see it going or anything else before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of hate on social media about, oh, Trump's doing this. What? I thought we were in the middle of a state of emergency. And, you see those kind of like comments all over the place. And yeah, unfortunately, we are at the point now to where this is a state of emergency because one half of Congress basically is just willing to completely ignore the problem because of their disdain for the president. And the other half is trying to do something. And unfortunately, that half isn't enough to get the votes through in order to fund it the right way. But because it's not being funded the right way, and it's most definitely a problem. No matter, we could talk about how big the problem is, but it is a problem at the end of the day. Having the influx of illegal immigrants that we have, particularly on the southern border, and hey, if they were coming from the northern border, screw you, Canadians, stay up there and on your side of it. But that's not where the problem is, and to suggest otherwise is just sort of being ignorant to the real problem at the end of the day. So it is an emergency. Whether or not Trump manages to squeeze in 18 holes of golf somewhere along the way, it still is an emergency. There have been plenty of emergencies that have been around that didn't merit the president's 100% attention all the time, and this is one of them.
All right. Well, moving into the next one that definitely got Trump's attention. Well, we're going to go into the Cohen testimony, but I do have on the list first the Mueller report. Just off the sense that I think that I wanted to talk about this because a lot of people see this report as it's going to be the smoking gun that's needed to impeach Trump. And by all intents and purposes, looking at the way that it may not be. And I mean, yes, it's going to be made public, parts of it. But the attorney general, it's really at his discretion. At least I found out from my research how much he makes known to the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, it sounds, yeah, like he's in charge of Mueller still technically at the end of the day, so he would have some sort of clearance over him on that front.
Okay. And so just the fact that this is being made public, like I said, everyone is looking at it as the smoking gun. The Democrats seem to now be getting things in place, and they're doing that probe on Trump, maybe because they don't believe fully, or they're just trying to have a contingency plan. But what does it worry you at all? Because as of right now, until something comes out, I'm just looking at this as like it's just something people are clinging on to. I don't have high hopes for it personally. If some crazy details come out to it, more power to it. But I just don't see it as going to be a big thing personally.
Yeah, this is going to be a big fat nothing burger. People, I don't know how long I've been saying it, how long I've been thinking it, but I mean, this is as we're getting closer and closer to the report actually being unveiled. What I'm worried about is, on one hand, I'm a huge fan of transparency, and I want it all to be released because I know not a word of it says that Donald Trump colluded with any sort of Russians whatsoever. There's no evidence to suggest that, and if there were, it would have been leaked by now because virtually everything of significance has been leaked for the last 2 years from this White House. So if there was, it was coming out by now. It's not there, and that's what they're worried about now. At this point, they're trying to suggest that they want it all out there, but what'll happen is it'll be dumped on us. It'll be a lot of redactions all over the place because, in one hand, I want everyone to see the evidence because I know it's not there. But on the other hand, what it's going to turn into is that the Mueller report is going to be a political hit piece from top to bottom, in Mueller patting himself on the back about how much he's doing and how many bad guys he put away, and Paul Manafort and George Papadopoulos and Carter Page and 12 Russian hackers that were doing Facebook memes or whatever it is. And it's going to be a lot about that stuff. There's going to be a lot about these supposed salacious things having to do with Trump, like things that are just going to be put in there explicitly to embarrass Donald Trump, even though the bottom line on the bottom of the report is going to say we found no evidence of collusion, which is what's going to matter, but it won't be what matters in that news cycle because of some other stupid detail about some stupid shit he did in a hotel in Russia in like 1984.
It's funny.
Sorry, that's a lot of
No,
bomb.
no, no. You're funny because it's true. Like in the whole no collusion part, if that is what comes out from it, it'll be glossed over because everybody will want to focus on, well, he paid two prostitutes in Russia 18 years ago.
Yeah, and well, I mean, and I talk about this on the show this week as well, is that they've already moved on. If you pay really close attention to the news cycle and to the Democrats, they've already moved past Russian collusion. You rarely hear it anymore, except for from the presidential candidates who want to just keep Hillary Clinton's memory alive in some way, shape, or form. But now they're doing this two-pronged attack. So on one prong, they want all of his financial records and the financial records of everybody who's ever done business with him based on no suggestion of a specific crime. They want to just go and look through all the paperwork in search of a crime, which is, as we know, not how a fair and legal justice system presides over things. And then on the other end, they want to push towards obstruction of justice. And there is already a litany of evidence to suggest that him firing James Comey and anything else that he's done since then is not an obstruction of justice. And you can ask people who would probably love nothing more than to be able to say that Donald Trump obstructed justice. And Andy McCabe and Jim Baker, who was the former lead attorney for the FBI, James Comey himself has said that Trump told him to investigate his campaign in case there was people who might be doing some bad things with the Ruskies. So, and Jim Baker also said that Donald Trump was told explicitly that he was not under investigation. So how would you possibly obstruct justice in a case that has nothing to do with you, that you don't even know is going on? It's nonsense. So those are the angles that they're going to push on the media. But just like the Russian collusion, they got nothing.
And I want this to be said. I know you've said it on the Wake and So before, so me and you are clear there. But for anyone who's just now listening, because you've said strongly before, if there is any proof of collusion, Trump needs to go to jail.
Absolutely, impeachment, jail, President Mike Pence, all of it. Yeah, I mean that's what needs to happen. But I don't believe that that's the case. I don't doubt that there were people in his campaign who were manipulated, who were new to the political scene, that just happened to get a job in the Trump organization because no one else would work with Trump, and they might have had connections. Paul Manafort, for one, absolutely had ties to Russia, absolutely had ties to the Ukraine, whether or not they were in any way, shape, or form there to benefit the Trump campaign. I feel like it was probably far more to benefit the pockets of Paul Manafort than it was to help Donald Trump directly. And I'm sure Donald Trump didn't know what was going on there because he would have fired Paul Manafort, which he ultimately did anyway. And like I said from the beginning, I mean, I think it's all a hoax based on all of the evidence that I've looked upon and read. And Dan Bongino wrote a whole book on this conspiracy to essentially to stop Donald Trump from becoming president and to spy on his campaign. Barack Obama and Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, all that whole Obama administration, the whole Clinton campaign, and the DOJ, all in conjunction, spying on the Trump campaign through peripheral people like George Papadopoulos and Carter Page. And whether or not any of that ever comes to light and any of them ever see any justice on that, I'm not optimistic about that, even though I think there is evidence to suggest that it could be proven. But I'm far more convinced that Donald Trump is not in any way, shape, or form in collusion with the Russians. And I hope this report comes out soon and proves me right once and for all.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's it. You know how people like to paint Trump supporters as unfair or blind. So I just really wanted to point out the fact for anyone who didn't listen to our previous conversation that you will be there on the front line.
Man, he will have duped no one harder than me. I will feel about terrible as anybody about it.
Yeah. Well, the last thing we have with politics before we get into the fun thing and get to talk some Captain Marvel, the Cohen testimony. We're not going to go and review the whole thing. That's already been done. But with your a position of being a Trump supporter, I figured this would be a cool question to ask you. What you found most shocking coming out of that? If you found anything shocking, and does any of it concern you at all as a Trump supporter?
A little more than the Russian stuff, like definitely way more than the Russian stuff, because, well, I mean, what we're dealing with here, a lot of the campaign finance situation in the Southern District of New York, which is a completely separate investigation altogether, has a lot to do with payoffs like Stormy Daniels and things along those lines. Michael Cohen appears to be cooperating with the authorities on this one. And at the end of the day, I think Trump will probably get nabbed for this. Like, I think he'll probably be found guilty of it if and when it happens during his actual presidency is I guess questionable, because I don't even know that they could prosecute a sitting president. There's no real precedent for that. But I think he'll probably get nabbed for it. It'll be a fine. It won't be jail time. What he did was relatively innocent compared to other finance issues in the past. I mean, basically, we're dealing with a guy who almost fully funded his own campaign. And he basically just took money from one pool, put it in another, and then paid the first pool back. All of it's really his money at the end of the day. It's far less dirty than they want to make it out to be. But that sort of stuff, I think there is going to be some legal ramifications for him. I don't think it'll be anything incredibly serious. It'll probably be a fine, something around $1 million or two, whatever the highest fine is for that. And I think Obama had the one before that, which was relatively insignificant. And as we know, no one talks about that. So, but moving on from the testimony itself, the most shocking thing in the whole ordeal was that the notorious AOC managed to actually string together a couple of coherent sentences. I was very proud of her. But I mean, I can't really take any of this testimony seriously. At the end of the day, the guy has already perjured himself, and it's now been rumored that even in this testimony, he may have perjured himself a few more times on top of it. He's a liar on top of a liar. And yeah, I know Donald Trump has a little difficulty with the truth at times as well. Donald Trump has not been asked to be a serious witness in the serious prosecution of any actual crimes yet. So when that day comes, we can dump on whether or not he lives in a world of reality or just outright hyperbole. And we'll see that hopefully play out on a witness stand if and when that actually takes place. But I'm not all that shocked by some of the things he said. He doesn't have any proof for any of the most salacious things that he said. The racism charges obviously being pretty big. The way that he claims Donald Trump speaks about black people behind the scenes. I would figure of all the things that he would be recording of anybody, that would probably be something that he would have gotten on tape, and he claims to not have that on tape. So I have to call that into question. The timing of the hearings is really what bothered me the most, though, with Trump overseas trying to negotiate a deal with Kim Jong-un in Vietnam about nuclear proliferation. There used to be like a long-standing tradition in the country where the president, when he was overseas, we would at least pretend to have a united front back here at home in Congress and in the House. And that clearly has been thrown out the window. Now, I'm not suggesting this is the first time that's ever happened, but in this case, dealing with the issues that he's dealing with, everyone knowing that the Democrats want nothing more than for him to fail miserably at every turn, regardless of whether or not it's good for the country, and then having this testimony. Yeah, I'm sure Trump was up watching it. all night, like everyone seemed to think that that was odd, that he would be watching this testimony when it's, obviously he would want to know what's said because it may very well come up during the negotiations that he's sitting across the table from a tyrannical dictator with nuclear weapons. He's trying to smooth that problem out, but now he's got to deal with Michael Cohen, who probably wouldn't know the truth if it bit him in the ass. So it's, it was a really difficult situation for Trump on that front, trying to deal with both of those things at once. And I don't think anything was accomplished. I think the Republicans have something to be ashamed of when they say, oh, 99.9% of what this guy said was a lie, but he said no Russian collusion. We can believe that. No, that's not how that works. And at the end of the day, I don't need Michael Cohen to tell me that he wasn't in Prague in order for me to prove that the Steele dossier that was largely based on his presence in Prague negotiating back channels with Russia. I can prove that through his passport. I don't need him to say it on the record in front of Congress. So that 1% of truth that the Republicans are clinging to is irrelevant. So they should have just mainlined this whole thing as this guy's a liar. We can't take anything he says seriously. And, hopefully that's how the public sees it.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I have nothing left to add. I will say this. The Cohen testimony is one of the most entertaining things I've ever. Law and Order eats your heart out.
Oh, all of these have been great. Like even the Comey hearings, like people are going to bars and like just chilling and watching these things. I'm almost pretty much in line. As soon as I see it's live, I just queue it up and then I'm lost for 2-3 hours, whatever it is. So they're fun. We'll get more of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know you probably stay on this more than I have, especially today because I've just been running around like crazy. But the tweets that I've seen from AOC's panel at South by Southwest.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're ridiculous.
They've been out of.
I saw Bill Nye made an appearance. So we've got the two world's foremost climate experts together in one spot there. That's a tremendous thing for all of humanity, I'm sure.
Oh man, I gotta go watch this as soon as we're done recording because the tweets alone just got me interested. But it's been an entertaining South by Southwest in general, so I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to hearing back everything she had to say. Multiple minutes in a live mic with AOC is not a good recipe for her long-term success. So I'm cool with all of it.
The thing with AOC, here's the thing, because I'm not an AOC hater, and I can understand. I mean, you're on the opposite side of the political spectrum from AOC, so I understand that. But I think a lot of what she says are good headlines, good things to retweet, good catchphrases. But for me personally, I find not all the time, but most of the time, the substance of what she's saying, besides some good headlines, really is just it's all over the fucking place. To just be quite honest.
Yeah, it definitely is. And there's a lot of she's pulling stuff out of her ass. And I like to pretend that I'm super educated and all this stuff. If I ran for Congress tomorrow and got dropped into the House of Representatives, I'd have a hard time getting through certain issues if I was really pushed on them. The problem with her is that her issues are environmentalism and corrupt money in politics. And as of right now, she is a hypocrite on both fronts. So, I mean, from what I can tell with some of the stories that are going around, as far as her carbon footprint in particular, her living so much higher on the hog than she claims that the rest of us should, basically. And then in addition to what's going on with her campaign, potentially funneling money into private organizations and some of that money ending up in the pocket of her boyfriend. All of this sort of like, if those are going to be your issues, you better damn sure make sure that the closet's clean before you start running your mouth about them. And that's obviously not what happened here.
Yeah. The thing that I've got my flack for it because I'm not someone who's blindly gonna be Democrat at all. Like I call Democrats out all the time, even though I guess I'm voting for whoever makes the most fucking sense to me, and what makes sense that aligns with my ideals, what matters to me, and I'm not afraid to call anything out as bullshit. And this whole shit, I've been toting this thing since the fucking midterms. It's like being blindly Democratic is just as bad as being blindly Republican, especially for people who don't really know what the fuck is going on. Like there's so many people who will. I had a conversation with someone one day, Bello, and this almost made me pull my beard hair out. and they commented on something I said. I don't even remember exactly what it was. Something I said politically on one of the episodes, and it was about don't bitch. Like if voting is your right. If you choose not to vote, that's fine. But I had said something like, well, you can't bitch at all about what anybody does if you choose not to vote.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
That's my opinion. And that we end up having a conversation in the DMs back and forth, and they were like, well, I just think that, you know, I can't get with Trump because XYZ. I was like, okay, all right, that's fine. If that's your opinion, that's fine. And I was like, are you Democratic or Republican? She was like, I'm Democratic. I'm a Democrat. I said, why? And
Crickets.
I didn't get a response back for 20 minutes. And then the only response was, well, I'm Democratic because I think that they're for me. I said, well, what do Democrats do that are blindly just for you? Since that just you threw
Yes.
that blanket on the whole party. You threw that on the whole party because there's some shitbag ass Democrats too. Um,
They're
and
just
I
for
and I
her
said,
too. They're not for her aunt, not for her aunt, cousin,
for
not
her.
just her.
And then I said, and I I said, I really think what you did is you went and wikied what political party Obama was, and you just said that's what you are. Never heard back. Never heard back. Didn't say anything back
Ooh,
to me at all.
damn. That's the truth hurts sometimes, man. I mean, that's what it comes down. Oh yeah, I
That's
mean there is a lot of what I'm referring to now is the passionately stupid out there, and then it's just not this necessarily this person you were talking about, but just a lot of people out there. I mean, look, I don't like being made to look a fool, so when I come out on my Twitter and I have a bold political statement to be made, I usually have some facts and data to back it up. So to just go out there and say willy-nilly things like I don't even know. I don't want to even throw blankets over so many. It's not even just Democrats. It's Republicans as well. But you just get like these ridiculous pie in the sky statements like everyone should have health care. Okay, that's great. Who's going to pay for it? Oh, you're a monster. How dare you ask what it's going to cost? Like these kinds of conversations. This is why people get elected to have specific roles in these processes, and that we should be paying a lot more close attention to the people that we are electing in hopes that they'll make the right kinds of decisions, as opposed to just going blue or red. Now, obviously, it's hard for me to bitch about this because I'm as red as it gets. But I'm red not because I woke up one day and somebody said, "Hey, be a Republican." Like I weighed the two parties. I'm looking at the value set, and mine more clearly and pretty much unanimously lines up with what the Republican Party is offering. Not that I'm proud of all of my Republicans, because God knows there's a lot of just little goobers in there that are just somehow getting elected in these flyover states, and they do little to nothing to help the president's agenda, and I'm not all that pleased about it.
I still love Uncle Bernie though.
I love Uncle Bernie too.
I really do. Like I love Bernie Sanders. I'm sorry. Like
There's something about the guy that you just got to give credit to. I mean, he's sticking around. Like he's going to
yeah,
be like damn near 80, and he's going to be trying to run for president again in a field where there's like 100 other people he's going up against. He's
yeah.
the old rich white Jewish guy in the party that hates old rich white Jewish guys. It's not a good. It's a very uphill battle for him.
Yeah,